It's been interesting.
Chaos.
Yeah. Ultimate chaos. So, Chris and Kim are now off to bed, but they had a really cool story, so they're gonna have to come back. Who wants to start this lovely, chaotic situation?
Where do you want to begin? I guess we could say that.
I don't
Yes,
know.
that's-
With you guys, it was just kind of like whatever happens, happens.
Mhm.
Basically it. We were having so many good conversations when we weren't on the air. Pretend we're not on the
See,
air.
you should have just hit record and then
Yeah, you
just
should've.
let it go.
I should have.
And then just jumped in and said, now we're back. And then just let it
Yeah.
It was just so
Now we're all
natural.
talking down.
Well, again, you know where I'm coming from. I want to talk about things of substance. I don't want to talk about the latest Gook and Spook sighting.
And I agree. I do.
Well, okay, well, Thomas, on a perspective, like, more from your coming from, do you believe in, like, Loch Ness Monster, cryptid, stuff like that, as an example?
Well,
Crypto?
what I look at is that I believe where there is smoke, there's fire. I don't consider it as part of the paranormal field, although some people do. I have a very specific scientific definition for what I consider to be paranormal. But yeah, I mean, what I think is we're looking at a field that's called cryptozoology, of course, and we discover hundreds, if not thousands, of species every year that we didn't know existed. So, can these things exist? I think there's a good possibility that something's going on with it. But I don't see it as really a crossover into the paranormal field to me.
Well, I know some really good cryptozoologists, and they didn't set it for this show, but if you're interested, I could always bring them on. I'm sure they'll agree to it. Let's probably stick to some stuff that we personally do or know for tonight, and then I'll bring them on, and you guys can kind of debate with them and ask them questions.
I'm not sure it's a debate as much as, to me it's interesting. I noticed that the cryptozoologists don't deal with the ghost people like us as much as the alien people, UFO hunters, don't deal with us. It's all under the same umbrella of looking for something that's unexplained. Yeah, we're definitely all in our subsections. I mean, I noticed that just running the expo. It's hard to get everybody in the same room.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. In fact, my experience is that there really is, I don't know how I would say it, but in the UFO community, there really is a conscious alienation towards the paranormal haunted type field. It's something that they're actually not neutral about. They're actually, negative about it.
And that's kind of funny to me, to be honest, because they have just as much quote-unquote scientific proof as probably we do, whether you believe it or not. So
Less.
Well, okay. Well, you know what I mean, though. It's just hard for me to gather that, okay, we both believe in something that the average person probably doesn't, so why would you hate each other for it? You know?
Yeah, and really I'm not 100% clear. I've kind of got a gist of what the thinking is behind it, but I'm not 100% clear about it. What I like to talk about is this: when I get into some UFO shows, which I have been on, what I tell them is this: I talk about criminology versus forensics. I say compare it to a police investigation of a crime scene, and everybody in this field, the vast majority of the paranormal field, the vast majority of UFO field, concentrate on the criminology, who done it, why they did it, and almost no one focuses on the forensics, which is what are the actual phenomena themselves. So I tell them, hey, put the alien reptiles that are hiding under your bed, and Dead Aunt Mary and all that stuff into another room for a minute. Close the criminology door and just look at the phenomena themselves, what is observable. And we find that the type of phenomena that is commonly reported in UFO sightings is almost virtually identical to that which is reported at the sites of hauntings, except for scale. But the type of phenomena are basically the same. So I argue, and again, this is where science is important, I argue that the same physical principles have to be involved in both.
That sounds reasonable to me, to be honest. So,
and so I'm not always popular on that end. But my position is kind of unique. Everybody knows that I sort of kind of belong in these areas, even begrudgingly. But at the same time, I have no ponies in the race. I'm not a paranormal investigator. I'm not a member of MUFON. I don't have to worry about offending certain people or certain ideas. I don't have to be worried about keeping the relationship so that all the communication channels are open and I don't get that guy ticked off, so I don't get invited to this and that, or biting the hand that feeds you, or throwing stones at this guy when you believe the same thing, and all that. So I'm in a unique position where I can actually, play that devil's advocate, so to speak.
well, honesty too. I noticed in the field, it doesn't go over well with a lot of people. That's kind of a shame, because we're all looking for answers to a question, whether it's on your end more of a science end to explain it, or I know for me, I just want to know what's out there, and then if I can get more knowledge to it, that's great. So honesty is a key to that, and I know a lot of people just cannot handle that direct, honest responses to their beliefs or thoughts.
Yeah, what they're presenting, and I think that goes back to the earlier comment about motivation, and a lot of people are like Thomas said, they're out to find the bigger, better ghost, and if you question them, if you show why they're wrong, they defend it, they take it personally. And I think that's a serious problem we have within the community.
I've made a couple enemies because I wasn't bowled over and just really flabbergasted by how paranormal that person was. I'm so paranormal. You should be falling over your chair at me, and it's like, well, yeah,
that's gotta be like the lamest. That's gotta be like the lamest claim to make about yourself. I feel paranormal.
Well, or the.
It sounds like a pop song. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it does. I know, what does that even mean? I'm so paranormal.
It gets to the point where you are so obsessed about dead people that you forget to live your life.
The one that I can't get over is it's not even personal, but how personally they take the photographs with their. This is Steve, by the way, Steve Prosapio.
Well, I didn't think it was Danielle, so you're fine.
how personally they take those photographs of some, the face in the window or the whatever, and you're looking at it going, well, okay, so is this house supposedly haunted? Did you do any research? Was there any other activity there? And it's like, well, no, but can't you see the face? Can't you see the person? Doesn't it look? And you're kind of like, well, there's a tree, and I can see there's lights coming in through the tree, which could make it look like a face. And oh, by the way, do you know that there's this phenomenon that we see faces in things? That's how our brain is programmed. But oh my gosh, if you don't see what
but that just means they're wrong.
The picture that was taken off of their back windshield.
But that's where you just don't give them the time of day at that point. It's like, you know what? If you supposedly see that, that's fine. If you think you have like superpowers, that's fine. And there's some people that see things that others don't. I get that, but if the person cannot see the thing you're trying to point out, shut up. Just shut up. Like, I mean, unless, I don't know, there's so many fake photos out there that people are like, don't you see it? No, not really. Well, then
the hooligan
explain
ones,
who
you know?
should be seeing it.
Yeah.
Like, if you see it because you can see shit, that's fine. I understand. But if it's not there, it's not there. We're not gonna go crazy with you. I'm sorry. There's so much. Whatever.
Well, that's why at the end of the day, I always tell people, even if I debate them on what they think they have, at the end of the day, what you put out there is what you believe. Now,
Right.
if the whole world tells you that you're wrong, well, then maybe you need to rethink your position. But at the end of the day, it's up to you to put out there what you believe is paranormal or evidence. And if you get smacked for it, you put it out there. So it's going to happen.
Basically,
stuff
what's
gets
the common denominator?
Yeah, I think another thing that happens to us is the television shows. A lot of the people that come into this have been influenced by those shows, and they always find something. Well, of course, always going to find something. It's TV, but they don't really get it. All they ever see is somebody finds something. So they go to do an investigation or take these photographs. If they don't find something, I mean, there's nothing there, which we know is 99% of the time. But for them, if they don't see something, they're a failure. And I think that's where the attitude that a lot of people get. If I go on an investigation and I come back empty, I failed as a ghost hunter. And that's the difference between being a scientist and just being someone who's thrill-seeking, and that's where you run into all this all the time.
Exactly.
So the people who are thrill-seeking, they can't handle being shown that they didn't find anything. They can't handle that it's okay not to find something.
And that is so true. And that's, to me, the difference between a ghost hunter where you're hunting something and have to come home with something versus an investigator where you're probably going to learn something, but you may not come back with anything that's going to, for this particular, I guess you call it case or investigation, whatever you want to refer to it as, or hunt, you should learn something every time. You may not have anything to show somebody, but they should build toward your next one and know, well, my last place I was at, that noise is from a heating system. Let's see if that's here today, as an example.
Yeah.
So if you hear anything strange,
it's just you?
Yeah.
In the neighborhood. Oh.
Well, what are some of the strange things that have happened to you guys? I know one place we investigated was a place called the Willow Creek Farm, and I will say that's one of the few places I've investigated that does have activity. I did have an experience one night where I was setting up my DVR system, and the little plates that you screw into the bottom of the cameras, and two of my 4 tripods, they were missing. And I couldn't find them in the box. I couldn't find them in my equipment bags. They weren't attached to the cameras. And I was at the point where I must have somehow left them at the last investigation. So I started putting the stuff away. And lo and behold, as I'm putting one of the tripods away, the piece is there. And there were 3 other people that looked at it with me and were helping me look for the stuff. Well, we couldn't find them. Well, one of them shows up on the tripod, and then one of them shows up attached to one of the cameras. So that was probably one of the most interesting things that ever happened to me. And then the owner of the farm, he's going, yep, that's the guys we got here. They like to mess with you.
So, now see, when I hear an account like that, I want to know what you think is happening.
Well, that's the question.
Yeah, and I'm not asking it from a skeptical point of view. And some might say, well, gee, you guys just missed it, and this, that, the other thing. But when you take a look at the gross volume of reports of similar things like that, you have to reasonably assume that at least one of them is valid. Are we dealing with a reality that is purely physical? Because clearly, if we are, then what you're talking about is impossible.
Well, this is Steve Prosapio again, and this isn't my expertise, but I have read several books on demonic possession and oh my goodness, let me try to exorcisms. And in one of the books that I read, they discuss the fact that at one point the woman's head turned in snake-like, essentially, and there were 4 people involved in the exorcism, all described the same exact phenomenon, and it was videotaped, and it didn't show up in the videotape. So that is.
But they manipulate text.
I mean, so is the video manipulated, or was something in the minds of the people manipulated?
See, this is what I think about demonic possessions. What I believe the demonic possession is basically when something on subconscious on the inside basically projects itself out into the environment like it was real, just like an overhead projector works. I say, for example, an alcoholic addiction. That could be a demon. And if the person's mind is weak enough, then, or if the person's mind is strong enough, these people that are demon possessed, contrary to popular belief, they have some pretty strong minds that can make up things. If it's strong enough, they could project that subconscious thought into reality and make it real to them.
So demons, in your estimation, for that idea, are like a thought form.
Exactly.
Creation. Okay.
Exactly. It's basically a
negative thought form.
I actually had terminology for it, but that was years ago. I forgot what I called it. But
I should have wrote it down, Matt.
Yeah, I equated
It might
it.
be important later. Yeah.
I equated it to an overhead projector.
Well, yeah, it's basically you're talking about a thought form, which it's as the more paranormal terminology, or I don't know if it's accepted, but that's the way I would understand it to be. A negative one is right.
That's everybody else thought that they were seeing it too, but the camera didn't pick it up. So that explains why the camera didn't pick it up, because everybody else thought that they were seeing this thing going on.
Mm-hmm. Something influenced their minds.
Exactly.
What about when something throws the camera across the room?
When
that
somebody,
minds?
when I haven't talked about this in so long. I've actually had an.
Now's your chance, dude. Here it is.
There's I'm sure, Thomas, you've heard of John Hutchison, right? The Hutchison effect?
It sounds vaguely familiar. Give me a little bit of background, and I might be familiar with the principle.
Basically, what this guy did was he charged particles in the atmosphere, and these particles were able to manipulate objects with mass, and he was able to manipulate, engage with these particles. They called it the Hutchison effect.
Uh-huh.
And I honestly believe that when something in the environment goes on that people say is demonic, I believe that there are different forms of there is energy out there, and I kind of believe that this whatever's going on here is I don't want to talk. I honestly don't want to talk about it right now because I'm not too studied up on it right now. It's like I said, it's been a long time since.
It seems like what you're saying is you believe there's something going on in the environment that's affecting the people's brains or their minds in the way they conceive it, and there is this infrasound at about, I think it's about 18 something hertz. Maybe you've John or Thomas, you've seen these studies. Infrasound at that frequency is said to actually cause your eyeballs to vibrate and allow you to hallucinate. So yeah, there is evidence that something in the environment can affect how you perceive the environment around you.
Like high EMF readings can make you sick.
Exactly, and that's
Mhm.
yeah. We've had a house that was just wired to the brim, and didn't believe that was what was causing his problems.
Oh yeah, just like
Yeah.
there was a case, I guess, in San Pedro, which is where I'm from, and I heard it from someone else, so please don't take me on my word for the credibility of this story. But they said they wrote a book or made a movie or something out of it, and it was a woman who had claimed she was raped by a spirit, but in the end, it turns out she was epileptic. Epileptic. But I can't speak. I'm sorry. I just had food. Yeah. But that's what she found out later on. I mean, that's why before when we were talking about cases and paranormal awareness and
Mhm.
safety, a lot of the time it is mental illness or physical condition, and or EMFs or like cell towers and stuff like that.
There's a lot. Basically, there's just a lot of factors that go into
Mhm.
every situation that we have to try to dig through to figure out, what it could be.
Right.
And TV doesn't show all that. I mean, they really
No.
Of course
don't.
not. Who would
It's
watch
not
that?
entertaining. The science.
No,
part is
talking
entertaining.
about a cell tower isn't entertaining at all. And I get that, but and any of the shows that have tried to be more educational usually end up failing.
Yeah, Paranormal Cops, the team that was in Chicago, Ron Fabiani, they got like half a season. And
Did you get half a season? I only saw like one episode.
yeah, I think they had
Yeah.
4,
I think they had
5.
like 3 episodes, and then they got canceled.
But
they
were
had to film a few more. I have met them, being from Chicago, and they've tried to get their show going again, but actually A&E won't even release the name Paranormal Cops. So them getting back on the air is probably not going to happen.
and they were debunking a lot of,
Yeah, they were
of the
very
cases
very,
and very
that
thorough
was their
in what
point.
they were doing.
Yet the ones that fake evidence constantly are the ones that are on air, which,
That's
I'm very
entertainment. That's what ends
happy
up
that I
being.
don't have TV
And it
anymore
sells.
because I won't watch them. And people are like, oh, it's so awesome. I
You
don't
know,
want to
you
watch
know
them.
what's
I
sad is
don't.
I didn't even watch my ghost story episode, so I don't even know how
You don't even know how it comes out.
I don't even know.
Let me put it this way. From my understanding of my ghost story from behind the scenes, the different people that have been on the show, you're better off not watching it. You don't want to know.
Well, I knew a guy that actually recruited for that, Chris Saunders. He's great. He's a really good person. But
No,
the
I was on before Chris Sanders was ever he was the I guess guest counselor or
he would get stories. That's basically.
yeah.
Yeah, he's really nice. I've met him. We've hung out. Like, he's really cool. But the show itself, who gets that much evidence? I mean,
most of it's
some of
questionable. I've
it,
seen on
yeah.
the show.
That's the thing is, I have a lot of
I didn't
personal
even
experience
even
that I
have
couldn't
evidence.
get what they got as far as
Well,
evidence.
Yeah, I haven't watched shows in a couple of years, and they would all be going on about their EVPs, and all I'm hearing is noise.
Yeah.
I know I'm a little older, and my hearing ain't the same, but all I heard was noise.
It's interesting. What the conversation, what we're talking about with some of these different types of phenomena, and what you're talking about. Here's what I think. First of all, I think there are several things that are not being considered in the paranormal field, not even being considered in the scientific field, and that these concepts change the way that we can look at this stuff. One of them, and the big number one thing I talk about all the time, and it just completely gets ignored in the paranormal field, is the scientific concept of information. And scientific words are used a little bit differently sometimes than what we do with the same words in common language. If you take a look at an apparition, for example, you'll hear people talking about energies and residual energies and spirit energy and this and that. And they'll talk about all these things. But the one thing that they'll not address or not even aware of is what you're talking about is a coherent collection of information. And so this is another element that has really never been handled seriously in the paranormal field until recently. That information has to come from somewhere. And so when you start looking at in terms of information, you begin to look at things a little bit differently. Another aspect that I consider is what constitutes reality. So if we're dealing with a mainstream scientific concept, which is materialism, it's just like what you were describing, Phil, is what I would call a very materialistic interpretation of that phenomenon. In that everything is trying to be described in a physical way. Whereas there are certain problems with that, which is what makes it paranormal. We could talk about this Hutchinson effect, but when you stop and really look at it, and I'm familiar with the effect you're talking about, when you talk about the amount of energy that is necessary to manipulate such a tiny mass, and then when you see paranormal levitations occur in haunted sites or poltergeist activity, that energy just isn't there. It's just not present in the environment.
And the Hutchinson effect, he uses what's called free energy, that's available in natural, say, for example, rocks, minerals, stuff like that. He uses natural energy to get this stuff to move around. And
you mean like from running water, that type of energy, that type of thing that's always in the environment, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Free energy, just natural energy that just exists naturally.
Okay, and it's harnessed in what way?
Basically, he harnessed. I'm not quite sure the method that he uses. And again, it's been a long time since I've talked about this stuff, so.
It almost sounds like we're talking about zero-point energy.
Yes, that's exactly what it is, zero-point energy.
Yeah, and pretty much every claim to have harnessed zero-point energy has never been duplicated or validated in any kind of physics. We're very familiar with this. It's actually in science, it's called vacuum energy.
Well, it's the holy grail for science in a lot of ways, isn't it? You would say that 0 point, just to be able to actually not just prove it, but use it.
Yeah, and the problem with it, with harnessing vacuum energy, is that at the wavelength that it occurs, we do not have any conductors that can harness that energy. There are no materials that we know that can harness that. And a lot of people, I hear people all the time, 0 point energy, 0 point energy. When you ask them what it is, they don't know. They just say some nebulous answer. They don't understand what it is. What we're talking about is a phenomenon where we have what we call virtual particles, and I won't debate that for a moment because that's a problem I have with my mainstream comrades. Virtual particles that literally emerge from the spatial field, and they collide. There are particles and antiparticles that emerge and disappear almost instantaneously.
Kind of like neutrinos.
Not even. No, they're not neutrinos because neutrinos have no charge. So they can't be a particle or a positive particle or an antiparticle. Neutrinos have no charge, which is one of the biggest problems that they have still with the Higgs boson, because the Higgs boson is supposed to impart mass on objects by stripping away the positive force, and there are no positive forces in neutrinos that have mass. The Higgs boson only explains about 5% of the mass in the universe. They didn't tell you that in the sensational public announcements. But what we have is an energy that's being released from the collision of these virtual particles, positive and virtual negative particles. And they occur at such a high wavelength, we have no conductor, a physical material that can harness it, because you have to harness it with mass. So these reports of zero-point energy, trust me, a lot of it is bogus. A lot of it is just blah, 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 when these people say, I found this and that, and then they just disappear. You know, their stories disappear, and then you get the conspiracy theories. Well, the government shut them down because it would put all the electrical companies, and it's all a bunch of nonsense. It's just, we don't have a way to physically exploit it.
You should probably talk like that the whole show. Just saying.
But this is what, you know, the public gets suckered into this stuff because they don't have the background. You know, it's just like I, you know, talk about the ancient aliens, where they talk about all these huge giant stones in the platform in Baalbek, you know, and there is no platform in Baalbek. And there are only 3 stones, and we know who cut them. My ancestors, the Romans, mined them, cut them, moved them, and placed them, because we have Roman construction underneath of them and above them. And we know exactly why they did it. You know, any engineer looking at the site would tell you, yeah, this is a retaining wall, and they needed to put that much weight in it to keep the city that they were going to build from sliding down the hill. You know, they did it in the Temple of Herod as such a giant stone. You'll never hear any of those boys talk about it, because it was all done in historical times. There can't be any aliens. So a lot of stuff gets pumped into these fields that's a bunch of nonsense.
Misinformation, basically.
Yeah, and it preys upon the ignorance of the common person, who also has a desire to believe in such things. And most of it is just bunk. Now, does that mean that these kinds of phenomena and events that we're reporting in the paranormal field or parapsychological field, does that mean that they don't exist? This is where I differ from many in the mainstream science. I accept their existence. So I say that this is telling us something about reality that we don't know yet, but it all gets hijacked from these crazy ideas. You know, one of the things, just to mention, talk about, we talked earlier, Joy, you were talking about spirit energy. And I didn't mean to kind of hop on you or something, but, you know, with that. But here's what we're talking about. Let's look at this scientifically for a second. All right? Energy propagates. There has to be a way to propagate energy. And it has to be propagated from a mass. These are facts. And if the spirit is energy, then if the conventional understanding of this is correct, there is something that is unique about that spirit that identifies it as that individual, as opposed to, you know, your spirit's going to have a different personality than mine, and so on and so forth. This is all information. And so we have a unique pattern of information that would have to be perpetuated on a constantly propagating field. And there is no source for it. And even the most powerful energy fields that we know that can sustain themselves after they've been propagated can only last for a matter of hours, 5-6 hours at the most. And they're huge, they're high energy. You know, they're like ball lightning, that kind of stuff. Plasma that's ignited, they can do that. But after a period of hours, they all dissipate. They have to be constantly being regenerated. So consequently, if a spirit codes off of a dead body in a form of energy, that dead body is decomposing its time. It's no longer a source of energy. So how does that become sustained in a propagation that could last hundreds of years? Or more. And that's the other thing that we have a concern about, too. Information is propagated on waves, energy waves, via modulations, which are inconsistencies. They're variations within the main electromagnetic compression wave, which is how we get radio. It's how we get TV over the air. We have a signal, a carrier wave, that has these little modulations in it that our TV sets or our radios can, you know...
Kind of like how you turn your radio to 1250 AM. That's 1250 hertz.
Yes, now that's the carrier wave. But if there was no information, if there was no microphone, no record player or anything like that on the other end, all we would receive is carrier wave, but would have no information on it. So that information, if spirits are energy, and most people who promote this idea also think that these spirits are eternal, based on a poor, rudimentary understanding of Einstein's mass energy equivalency formula. Here's a problem. We know that at a certain point, so many years in the future, that our star will go supernova. And when that happens, the Earth is going to be absorbed into its energy field. And at that point, every structure being carried on any kind of a carrier wave is going to be dissipated.
Eliminated. Yeah, exactly. See, what a scientist will tell you is they may not believe in ghosts in a spiritual sense, but whenever you look out into the night sky, you see plenty of stars, and those stars are some of those stars that you see at night have died. Their light waves took so many years to reach their Earth.
Yeah, and they are actually at a distance from us, so that the information that light wave is carrying does not degrade sufficiently. We can still identify it, even though it may not exist in our time anymore. The information does. But, you know, if we look at the most distant galaxies that we can detect in the universe right now, which are, 14 billion light years away or whatever, and a supernova occurs in one of those, we would never know it because the information pattern would degrade and dissipate long before it ever reached us.
Okay, if you would agree with that, then all right, here's my disposition on this. If you agree with that stars can have, I guess, ghosts, if you will. If stars can have it, okay, we are made up of some of the same elements in stars, correct? we're made of carbon.
We can't gloss past the statement that you just drove by. That was a drive-by shooting. That you said stars have ghosts, and then you started talking about something else. We have to define that first. What do you mean by ghost?
Well, the ghosts that I'm talking about, in a sense, is that we are seeing these stars, the light that is taken, maybe some millions of years to travel to Earth, okay. And some of those stars have actually died by the time that the light has gotten there, right?
That is correct.
That, in a sense, is a ghost, an object that has died. We to see the, image of an object that has died.
Right, but what you've just done is completely redefined the term ghost to mean something completely different than it ever has before. And
exactly. People say that ghosts are souls. Ghosts are spirits. Ghosts are. I don't believe that ghosts are souls.
Neither do I.
I believe that just like ghosts are, and I'm going off of everything that you've been talking about. Ghosts are an energy that we just have not come to understand yet. Ghosts are a form of energy that we just haven't come to understand yet. And
but what you're talking about, if I could back up for a second, are known, established, tested, and validated physics
exactly.
tells us that the information and the light wave coming from that star that's carrying that information is real. It exists, and it exists in real time. Where it propagates, it doesn't matter. In other words, let's look at it a different way. Let's have a radio station, and we have a radio antenna, and that radio antenna is broadcasting a signal, and that signal has the information on it. Let's say it's a program, it's a song that is carried on the radio wave as a propagated wave with modulations.
Right.
And let's say it's broadcasted at a strong enough frequency or a strong enough energy level, so it travels quite a distance. So it travels. Let's say the radio wave may take 20 seconds to reach its furthest distance of propagation, even though that's quite a bit. What you're telling me is that when somebody turns off the broadcast tower, and you have this propagated beam still traveling in the air, that magically that beam turns into a ghost as soon as somebody shuts the power off on the radio tower.
Okay, guys, we gotta wrap it up within the next 5-ish minutes, okay? 5 or so.
All right.
That's cool.
I mean, I'd love to continue this.
This is a very long conversation.
Well, what we'll do, guys, what we'll do is if you're all up to it, we'll come back and we'll do another roundtable just for fun, whenever you guys want. I mean, it's not
Yeah, we'll do another one.
Yeah.
That sounds good to me. I understand where both Phil and Thomas is coming from with this, and it's kind of interesting to just sit back and watch. Oh, not watch, but listen to this and just see it. I mean, this is something that I know a lot of investigators and even people who are fans of paranormal don't see the true science end of what sometimes we deal with, or don't at times as well.
I enjoy that. That's kind of why I wanted to do this again, just to hear people's opinions, views, and findings, and and hear all these different sides of the story. Because there's a lot of different things.
The topic of ghosts hasn't really been up in my train of thought for the past 6 months because I've been kind of getting away, not really getting away from the whole investigation and all that stuff. I've just been taking out time
to live,
to live a little bit and to rejuvenate my spiritual well-being, and and I haven't been too studied up on this stuff, and if I'm going to be doing these radio interviews, I need to get back into studying. Because I used to have terminology for all this stuff, and I used to talk about this stuff every week, and I'd be able to spit it off left and right.
Yeah, that's fine, Phil. But honestly, too, I don't think anybody expects you to... Like, Thomas has a very science-minded terms. That's something I know in the paranormal field we don't use all the time. We probably should use it more, but we don't. So to be kind of taken back by that is kind of expected. I mean, it's all understanding what you mean. Like, I understand what both of you are going for. I probably use different terms myself. There's nothing wrong with that part of it.
Yeah. And Phil, you're not the only one that's been away from this. I've been away from... life started about 2 years ago, but the paranormal has been around my whole life. So now I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying the good and all the positive things that have happened and all the changes that I've actually been away from the paranormal more than I would have ever expected to be. Because, there's other things people should focus on, too. If science is your life, I'm all for it. Paranormal is your life, I'm all for it. But, there's other things you have to do. You have to work. You have to live a little. Because you're studying, essentially, dead people and the afterlife, or what we view as, breaking the veil, or whatever term you want to use. We're studying something that's putting us in the past. That's putting us. It's heavy. It's something that I respect people who do take breaks, because you need that mentally, physically. You need to be able to function as a human being before you can get into that. You have to be able to feel good enough to do that, because it does take a lot out of you.
See, the way that I look at it is, if you're going to do this to be out in the field to help people, you better make sure that you don't have your
help
own
yourselves.
Yeah.
Exactly. And last year was a really tough time, and I had to step back and just take a little time spiritually and kind of rejuvenate myself a bit before I get back into it again. And
well, I'm sure.
I think that should be one of those things that everybody should have to deal with at some point in time in their investigation. Some it takes 6 months, some it takes 5 years, some it takes 10 years, some it takes 20 years before they decide to step back.
And sometimes you don't come back. I mean, you can talk about it. Like with me, I'm doing this radio show, but I'm not investigating right now. PPRS is open, and Joy knows that. She's got a branch in Tennessee, and I'm really glad that someone was willing to do that, because I would love to keep it alive and be able to be active in it, but this is a good time for me compared to the past. And Phil and John and Frank, Joy too probably, you guys have known me for
a long time. You've been around
4, 5, 6 years?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, several years.
More than that, maybe. But
It's been a while.
yeah, when I stopped doing garden radio, I couldn't do garden radio. Like, the things that were going on were just insane. And now things are better, but, health-wise they're not. But, I don't know. It's just, it's putting your foot in the door and hoping that something good will come back. That's two different... I cannot speak tonight. I apologize. I am the class clown of the radio show.
You're mixing your metaphors.
I'm mixing my metaphors. I'm tired. I'm not looking forward to tomorrow where I have to stick people. And by that I mean phlebotomy. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody has paranormal things to promote. Yeah, I don't really have any paranormal things to promote, but my capoeira group, we're actually doing we're doing some documentaries that should be. We're doing a documentary that's going to be released on public access here in the near future, and it will be. You will be able to watch it on YouTube about capoeira if anybody's interested in it. There's a trailer out for it as well called Vivendo Capoeira, meaning I live capoeira, and also. I'm actually might be getting into the fight scene, like the stuntman type deal, so who knows about this whole paranormal thing. I've actually had some actors, some friends of mine from school that became actors in the stunt world, and they came up to me and asked me about the whole, what have I been doing with my martial arts that I used to take back in the day, and I'm thinking about getting into it, so who knows?
You should talk to Chris. Kim and Chris that were on, they're in North Carolina. It's not that far off the map. And he does acting. You might be able to help.
Yeah, whatever comes up, and who knows? Who knows what will happen in the future?
All right.
Yeah, I think we're all pretty much day by day on that one, man. So.
No kidding. This show is an experiment. That's what I'll call it from now on. It's just an experiment.
DNA experiment. There you go. I just tagged
Those
it
are
for
my
that.
initials, so that's my brand for the business in the future, which is my future goal, is to own a business. And I already have my plans and everything. Every day I get better, bigger and better ideas. And just like with everything, things change. I didn't know I was going to be doing this show. I talked to Thomas like 6 months before this started, and with David Roundtree, thinking I was going to come back and do this, and that was on hold. Now it's back, and all I really want it to be is a place where people can come, they can talk, they can promote, real topics can be discussed, at a comfortable level, not something that has to be all hyped up. And I don't want to be pampering anyone's butt. I'm not a CNA anymore. I'm not going to be changing diapers. If you puke on me, I'll send you away. Do not commit suicide on my show.
Oh.
But Thomas, I did want to mention that I do have a thesis paper that I wrote a long time ago for a science convention. That you know how those science conventions need an actual paper of your thesis before you can go into. I wrote one a long time back, and I have all the scientific data and everything included on it. So I'll shop it to you one time. See what you think.
I'd be
Keep me in
happy
the
to
loop.
look at it. I would.
So keep me in the loop too. Send it. I mean, all this stuff that you guys are talking about and connecting and everything. I mean, send it to me. I still want to learn a lot.
Yeah,
more.
it never really made it popular in the science or in the paranormal community. But a few scientists, I actually shopped at the Brian Greene, and he was when he opened up Science U, I told him about it, and he was very interested in it. So.
Hey, the paranormal field always needs new ideas and new theories and new things to help push us forward. So, I mean, even any idea that's different, I hope, whether it's correct or not, isn't even, I don't think, the issue. Hopefully it helps us all move forward, to the right idea, whatever that is.
In other words, don't be scared to say something, especially on my show. Unless it's offensive to every single person in the world, which...
Well, there goes my last statement. Okay.
Well, as
John's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm done for the night. Yeah.
John, we love you.
Hold the rug out for me. Yep.
Come on. Yeah. Oh, sound effects.
Hey, you're lucky I didn't get the soundboard going. I have some good ones now. You're just lucky.
I want to know where that lightsaber sound came from because that was actually pretty cool.
That
was
wasn't
kind
for me.
of random that nobody owned up to on that one.
I think it was those virtual particles coming out.
Oh my.
I think that was it right there.
That was it.
That was it.
That was a bomb.
That was me.
That was a gong.
It's the quiet ones. It's always the quiet ones.
Sorry, I'm having too much fun over here. Alright. Well, that's, I know someone wanted me to wish them happy birthday on the show, so happy birthday, Brandon Phillips. Other than that, we're done for the night, and I have no idea what's going to happen next, so stay tuned. Probably 2 weeks. I don't know. It depends on when you... I think, honestly, I'm just going to start recording conversations. Like, if you guys are free, hit me up. Well,
yeah, you can post them whenever then. That sounds like a good idea.
I mean, what's the pressure? What's the freaking pressure? It's not like it's a TV show. I mean...
Well, yeah, like, I started that little radio podcast thing, which has exactly one show that's in hiatus right now, because I never did mine, so I understand about no pressure.
Yeah. I mean, we can cuss, we can drink, we can do whatever the hell you want. Just like I said, no crazy business, alright? Yeah, so alright, let's wrap it up. It's almost 10 here. I don't know what time it is there, but I feel sorry
It's
for
almost 1.
Wow.
Yeah, midnight here.
You know, I don't think I wanted to end this because when I do, I'm going to realize Monday's tomorrow, and it makes me sad. So.
Yeah, me too.
I hate it. All right.
Jeez,
Well,
I was certainly happy to meet everybody.
Yeah, I'm glad
definitely.
everyone
Yeah, I'd love to talk to you some more, Thomas. I think you have a very good
nice
viewpoint.
meeting everyone.
Absolutely. I think I'll get a copy of your book.
Well,
And nice
thank
to
you.
meet everyone.
All
Nice
right.
meeting
Well, you guys can
Nice
stay on.
meeting you, John.
A moment.
Later.
All
Good
right.
night,
Right on.
Gracie.
Gracie.
See you.
Say goodnight, Gracie. Bye-bye.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Good night, Danielle.
See.